been concerned with the landfill issue, and I think we've all been concerned with the landfill issue in Nashville. How do you see that as one of the major problems in terms of winning this election, which is to say that do you see it as a very divisive issue in Nashville as it has been over the last several years, or do you see some method whereby we might be able to deal with the landfill issue however?
Well, we, of course, at this point have a landfill sited which, in Bell's Bend, which is trying to be made legal through the state. And if that has all happened by the time I'm mayor, then it won't be my issue to deal with. If it hasn't, and we have to get back into it in some way, I guess my main thought is that it's important to just sort of deal with it quickly. There's no easy answer to citing a landfill issue, and to me the best answer is find some place for it, really put on a full court press on the council to get a place approved and get it behind us, because in a way the worst thing that's happened about this current issue is just the way that it's festered for years. It just, you know, dominates everything we talk about in the city for so long. If it falls to me to deal with it, I'd like to just get it behind me as soon as possible.
I think another part of that will be the whole issue of recycling. What's your platform in reference to that?
Oh, I think recycling is a very important part of the whole solid waste management plan, that you have to sort of put it on the front burner and first ask the question, can we recycle these things? And there's a lot of yes answers to that question, whether it be paper or glass or compostable materials like yard wastes. And then when you've picked out what you can recycle, look at what the alternatives are, incineration, landfilling, transporting out of county, for the remainder. But until recycling is put as the first issue and not something which happens with the leftovers, I don't think it's ever going to play the kind of role that it should.
Looking at your campaign now, you've been involved with your campaign for the last year, but you only, I think over the last couple of weeks, announced your candidacy. Now, why this great difference between your official announcement and some of your activities? What was the special reason? Or
the reason was, when back in last June, a year ago, when Mr. Boner said he wasn't going to run again, I just immediately leapt in and said that I did plan to, and I guess that in some way was my formal announcement. I said that later on in the campaign I'd make a more formal announcement that laid out some issues and then the like. And we just planned that really to coincide with filing papers and becoming officially and legally a candidate and getting on the ballot. So it was just something that happened in the normal course of things.
Now, are there any plans to campaign different between now and the August election, or what are some of your campaign plans?
No, I've been campaigning, well, really hard since probably January 1st, and quite a bit all through last fall. And this will just continue. It'll even intensify a little more in these last couple months. But no, this announcement doesn't mark any big break in the campaign. It's just you know, one milestone along the way.
Well, now, what about some of the charges that have been made in the local press in reference to your wealth and campaigning? For example, I think that a couple of days ago it was announced that you had accumulated some $865,000 for your campaign chest, and money is still coming in, and et cetera. How do you see that, and what can you say in terms of that magnitude of resources that you have available?
Right. Well, you know, it's one of these things of, it's hard to keep everybody happy. When I ran 4 years ago for the office, I largely put in money out of my own pocket because I didn't have a lot of supporters and ability to raise money, and people criticized me for that. And that was a reasonable criticism. So this time I just started very early saying that I wanted to go out, I wanted to raise money in the community. I wanted to raise it in as small chunks as I could, not coming in big lumps from any one person or group, but you know, spread across the entire community. And I've been delighted with the way things have worked out. I mean, we've gotten enormous numbers of $50 and $100 and $25 contributors to the campaign, and been very successful at it. I'm proud of what we've accomplished, and hope that other people can can see the importance of being able to get your message out and show people what it is you're trying to offer.
Now, what are some of the things that you would like to happen in Nashville under your administration? Which is to say that certainly you're concerned about openness in government, and you're concerned about education, and you're concerned about the landfill recycling, and et cetera. But I think that those are sort of basic, staple kinds of things that all persons ought to be concerned with. But what are some of the special characteristics that you want to bring to government in Nashville, and some of the special things that you have in your vision of what a greater Nashville ought to be?
Well, certainly in the short term, in a narrow sense, my background's in the business world, and I think there are a lot of things about just the way that metropolitan government is run, how departments are organized, how the financial system works, how contracts are let, that really need a much more business-like approach. And one of the things that I certainly feel that I can bring is that business-like approach to metropolitan government. And I believe that that will help restore people's confidence in government and is an important agenda item for the city. I'm also, as we've talked about, very, very interested in economic development. I want to go out, I want to recruit companies to come here and bring jobs here. I think education is terribly important for the children in the community, and this opening up of government to bring more people into the process. If I could be remembered 4 years or 8 years from now, those are the things I'd like to be remembered as having accomplished for Nashville.
I think you're also quoted in the newspaper as saying that you have a vision of what a greater Nashville ought to be, and that we ought not to compare ourselves with other cities, but to try to move forward. Why don't you say something in reference to that, because I think that's quite interesting.
I sometimes think we have gotten too defensive. That we look around and we look at what this city is doing or that city is doing and say, why can't we do it that way? Why can't we recruit business the way Charlotte does? Or why can't we recruit tourists the way Branson, Missouri does? And what I've been saying is, I'd like for us to get in the leadership position and people from around the country, to look at Nashville and say, well, how did they ever get it so good over there? And I think we can do that. I mean, we have the resources here and the people and the willingness to do it, and what it's going to take now is some leadership.
Quite recently, several large city mayors met in Washington, D.C., and they presented to the President and Congress what they call an urban agenda. And of course, Nashville would also be a part of that kind of operation. And as the mayor of Nashville, how do you see some of the problems that they raise in terms of homelessness, in terms of the decline of many of our inner city areas? Because I think that the problems that they spoke of are some of the problems that are current here.
Right.
Perhaps they're not as intense in Nashville, but there's some of the same problems.
Well, I think that's an important point, Doctor, because we have those problems here, no question. But the good news is that we don't begin to have the level of problems that Washington or New York or Chicago have in these areas. I mean, ours, I think, are soluble. I think the problem of homelessness, I think, for any of us is very bothersome. The notion that someone doesn't have a roof over their head or a meal on the table. And I think there are things we can do. One of the things I've done personally is to found an organization called Nashville's Table, which is collecting food from restaurants and hospitals and hotels that have surplus food and distributing it around to agencies that serve the homeless and the hungry. That's been very successful. We've, in our first year of operation, we distributed about 100,000 pounds. I mean, that's 50 tons of prepared food, and I think really made a dent in some of the problems of hunger. Affordable housing is certainly a critical issue. There are just too many people today who have jobs but simply can't afford decent housing. Part of it is in using codes administration within Metro government to force landlords to keep property they own up to some minimum set of specifications. Part of it's taking advantage of the programs that exist out there, the tax credit programs, for example, to try and build new housing and renovate existing housing. So everyone, and certainly every family with children, really deserves a decent, clean, tight place to live, and I'd like to do my part to help see that happen.
Very good. But I think a final issue that we would certainly like to speak to has to do with some of the problems that we're having with our young people and crime and drugs. And again, Nashville does not have the same problem or the same level of problems of some of the other areas, but nevertheless, we do have problems of crime and drugs and whatnot within our city. How do you see these as being problems that you could possibly deal with as mayor?
Well, I think everyone recognizes that the mayor of an American city is not going to by themselves solve the drug problem or even really the crime problem. I think there are some very definite things we can do, however, and in my mind it starts with education in the lower grades of the schools. To me, a much more cost-effective and a much more humane way to deal with the drug problem is to teach young children how to say no, how not to do it, teach them what the dangers of drugs are, give them alternatives in their own lives, and I'm very committed to a strong drug education program in the schools. I think also sometimes you have children who may be good kids basically, but who get in some trouble. And in those cases, we have organizations in the community who can provide some help. I'd like to use the mayor's office to help coordinate that help, make sure that children don't drop between the cracks in the services that are available. And I think between those two things, we can not solve the problem in its entirety, but really make a dent in the problem that we have.
The independent audit.